Getting rich and escaping a life of mediocrity is a game that starts internally rather than externally. For me personally, I was broke for the longest time and got to over 100k per month. When I realized this, it started internally with who rather than externally with how. And so if you want to radically change what you get in this life, specifically your finances, you first need to radically change who you are. And you may say this is delusional or brainwashing, but let me ask you this. Why would you let an identity that you didn't even choose in the first place control your life instead of consciously choosing who you want to be and therefore what you get? And so over the next couple minutes, I will explain 3 practical tools that you can use to apply into your life today that will allow you to shift and align your beliefs with your financial goals so they literally become inevitable, because external reality is simply a reflection of an internal cause. But let me tell you, if you can't focus for that period of time, this getting filthy rich thing, it's not going to be for you. So you've got to give yourself a chance. And so the first tool that we can use to shift our beliefs and therefore our identity, because identity or self-concept is simply the beliefs you hold about yourself. And so the first tool to do that is going to be self-hypnosis, and 2 benefits derived from it, which is state activation and success simulation. And I will go into both of them. But regarding self-hypnosis, I'm sure you've heard of visualization. Visualize the outcome or visualize your goals, and it's sort of half the story, because visualization is borrowing a lot of the techniques and principles from self-hypnosis but not using all of it, and we should just use the full effective protocol. You see, self-hypnosis is simply when or a hypnotic state is simply when you're in a deep relaxed state but you're in this deep focus at the same time. And so in this state, you're highly susceptible to new experience, new ways of being, and therefore new ways of behaving. This experience can actually fundamentally shift the beliefs that you hold about yourself, because belief is simply formed through experience. And so we can manufacture experience that works for us rather than against us. We can bring a future self forward, simulate success, which is the first benefit here. And ultimately, belief is dictating the actions that we take to a large degree. And so if we can change belief before we even have the experience, we can change the way we behave. We can manufacture experience that allows us to succeed, being focused, confidence, conviction, taking action. All of these things, we can normalize them before we even take the action in the first place. We can shift that belief and actually make the action feel easier later on. And so hypnosis isn't this sort of woo-woo stuff. This is used clinically and medically for insomnia, drug addiction, pain management, weight loss. It's used to fundamentally change behavior on a dime, because it can change the way you view it, the way you believe about the world, the meaning that you assign to things. And that instant change allows you to change your behavior. And so the second thing, beyond simulating success and allowing us to take conducive action, is state activation. So I'm sure you realize that sometimes you wake up and you feel a bit more confident than other days, and sometimes you wake up with doubt and fear, especially if you're going after a big goal. And ultimately, action is predominantly influenced by how you're feeling. If you're feeling a huge amount of doubt and desperation, it's very unlikely that you're gonna take confident action towards your goal, which is what it requires. And so if we can actively set our state, our mood, that would be a very powerful thing. Well, we can do that with self-hypnosis. Because as I said, you're experiencing. Your mind cannot differentiate the difference between vividly experienced experience within a hypnotic state compared to experience that you have in the physical world. And so that allows us to experience something and feel a certain emotion and bring that emotion forward into the day. And so if you did a self-hypnotic track every single morning, regardless of how you woke up, whether doubt or fear, you go into the hypnosis session and you come out with confidence, calm, and conviction, because you've just experienced 20 minutes of overwhelming success. And so you can bring that emotion forward, and it allows you to take conducive action. That's state activation. And so it's these 2 benefits which fundamentally allow us to change the beliefs that we have before even taking anything in the real world And it allows us to change the way that we think and the way that we feel, which also allows us to take more conducive action in the world. And so it's a practice that we can use to change behavior, and simply success is a sequence of actions. And so it's a very powerful one. And it's especially powerful when used in conjunction with the second tool, which is called inevitability embodiment. And this is simply embodying the version of you right now for whom the goal is inevitable. The version of you right now for whom the goal would literally be unavoidable. And so you need to look at this, you need to look at your goal first. Financial goals are very easy because it's money, it's quantifiable, it's a number. So pick a number, and then what version of you for whom would that number be literally impossible not to get, right? In the way they think, in the way they feel, specifically in the actions that they take, but also the beliefs they have, their routines, their habits, their diets, everything. You understand that person, and then you become them. You commit to them, right? It's kind of like method acting, and at first, sure, it'll feel weird, it'll feel strange, it will feel alien, but if you really do some introspection, you will understand that identity, or the self, is simply what you're familiar with. It's simply just the known. And so if you repeat something for long enough, it will just become normalized, and that's who you will become. And so we can consciously choose who we become. And this works perfectly with self-hypnosis, because say you do a self-hypnosis tape in the morning, and then you carry that forward. You have set this state of being and this way of thinking and feeling. You've already simulated the version of you that you want to be, and then you just take that simulation and you bring it forward into the day. You embody that character, because whoever you're being is what you're going to get. And so that makes action and doing all of the things that you need to get towards the goal a whole lot more easy if you are already being the person for whom it's inevitable. And if you are being the person for whom the goal is inevitable, it will be. It's that simple. And so that brings us on to the third tool, which ties this all together. And if we don't have this, it doesn't matter how much hypnosis, visualization or embodiment you do, thinking, feeling, it doesn't matter, which is action. But specifically, we want to take three things: relentless, persistent, and consistent action. Because action is ultimately the glue that will hold this all together. The other two tools, embodiment and self-hypnosis, allow action to be taken a lot easier, because ultimately action doesn't happen in isolation. What determines whether one takes action towards their goal or not? It's the beliefs that they hold, but also the thoughts that they're thinking and the emotions that they feel. And so if we can align these with our goal, it makes action a whole lot easier. But if you're not taking relentless, deliberate action, it doesn't matter what you feel, right? So we need to take consistent action, but specifically we need to take consistent action no matter what. Because if you really think about it, it's not when it's going well that separates the people who make it and the people who don't, the rich and the poor. Everyone can do the action when they're feeling confident. At the start, everything's going well, it's summer, it's awesome. And then you get to the winter of adversity. Resistance hits, failure, negative emotion. That's what separates the people who make it and the people who don't. And so that's where consistent is especially important. And I've got a frame which I learned last year, which changed absolutely everything. Because when you experience negative emotion, the first instant reaction is victimization. Why is this happening? Why do I feel like this? Why is it all going wrong? Why is everything around me going wrong? Why is every cell in my body telling me to turn around? Now that's actually resisting the emotion. If you resist emotion, it will persist. If you resist, it will persist. And so if you can reframe that, flip it on its head, and when you feel adversity, negative emotion, or anything hard going on in the world around you when you're going towards your goal, if you can feel gratitude instead of victimization, you can actually say thank you for that emotion, it changes everything. And the reason you would do this is because if you understand that whatever you want out of life is on the other side of your ability to overcome and actually embrace adversity. And so if it's the adversity which is actually going to allow us to win, we want as much of that as we can, because that is they are the gatekeepers of our success, the negative emotions, the sleepless nights, the doubt. That is what we want. And so when we experience it, instead of viewing it from a frame of from a frame of negativity, if we can view it from a frame of gratitude, that changes absolutely everything. It makes taking action, even despite everything going wrong, feel amazing, because you're like, man, I'm making so much progress. I feel all this doubt and I'm still taking action. I'm so thankful for that. That reframing is so powerful. And ultimately, it makes the goal inevitable, because the only reason you wouldn't get it is because of this adversity. It's because of this laziness that seeps in, or this lack of drive, or whatever it may be for you that stops you from getting to the goal. If you feel that resistance and then you feel gratitude for it and you understand that you need to push through it, changes everything. And so they're the three tools: self-hypnosis, inevitability embodiment, and wrap it all together with relentless action. And you are fundamentally being the version of you for whom the goal is inevitable. You are aligned with your thoughts, emotions, and actions, and ultimately the beliefs that hold it all together. And so that's it. If you can be that person, the goal will be inevitable, because as I said, external reality is simply a reflection of an internal cause. And so I hope you found this valuable. If you did, I will link a series labeled something like How to Get Rich by Mastering Your Mind, which has adjacent lessons on how we can master internally to get what we want externally. But apart from that, thanks for watching and Godspeed.